Hey guys, welcome to the episode. So tonight's episode, just out in the shed, I'm going to have a bit of a recollection and talk about a trip we done back in April 2023, so last year. It all started back in 2018. A group of us that we'd been talking to each other through Facebook and the forum platforms for a number of years. We come up with the idea that we should do a G60 trip. We should meet each other in person and get the old G60s out together and do a few tracks, bit of four drive, bit of camping, just living the G60 dream. So we got the ball rolling and a bit of a plan started coming together, and eventually we come up with the idea that why don't we go down to the Victorian High Country. I've been into four driving for a number of years now and always wanted to go down there and see it. So I thought, nothing more iconic than getting the old D60 down there and hitting a few tracks. So the plan came together and 2018 rolled around and off we went. It was during that trip we decided, look, everyone was having such a good time, why don't we do this a bit more often? Why don't we make it an annual event? So that was all good and well, easier said than done. So around 2019 rolled and started getting a plan happening. Then all the COVID stuff kicked in, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything, couldn't leave your state, and that ruined that idea. So in 2020, when things started opening up again, looked a bit promising, and we got a trip planned and date set. About two weeks out from the trip date, the national park was on fire and it was all closed down. So there goes that idea. That was all gated off. So fast forward a year or two, we thought, nah, let's get together. We've got to do this, get out there again. So a few of the fellas that couldn't make the first trip in 2018 that had to pull out at the last minute, unfortunately, they were a bit disappointed, as were we. So they were finally able to make this trip, which was great. So we thought, we'll go see the high country again. It's an awesome spot. Them blokes haven't seen it. Probably won't see it if we don't do a trip there. So let's do it. So we got the ball rolling, date set, and we done it. In the lead up to the trip, there's always dilemmas that strike you. A few weeks out from the trip, I noticed that the G60, my 1977 Ute, was starting to leave a bit of coolant between the head and the block, so out the side of the head gasket there. The motor in that old G60 was always a bit lazy, a bit tired. I mean, G60s are not a speed machine by any means, but foot flat, ping, 85 would be the stretch. So she was a bit tired, she had a fair bit of blow by, but she kept going, she plodded along, ran okay while I was going, it was just a bit underpowered. So anyway, I thought, I could re-ring it, do all that, but I'm running out of time. So I had another G60 parts car, and it was a wreck. There wasn't a straight panel on it. I don't know. I have a suspicion it might have been rolled, but I do have the suspicion to this day that was a low kilometre motor or hadn't done a lot of work. So anyway, I pulled the motor out of the 77 G60 with the timer ticking, making sure I'm getting it back together and it's going to be good for this trip. So I thought, before I pulled the motor out of the parts car, I done a compression test, which doesn't always tell everything. So I done a leak down test and it was really good. I had about 10-15% leakage, worst case scenario, across the whole engine, and had really good compression. Had I think it was 165, 170 across all the cylinders, where the old motor that was in the G60, I think the highest was about 130. It's a bit below spec, but specs don't mean everything. The more compression would be better, but it ran alright. It was just a bit slow, but it was reliable still. So other than the head gasket started to weep. So anyway, this motor checked out alright, so I ripped her out and put her in the Ute. I think when I had that motor out of the parts car, I degreased it a bit too well and loosened up a fair bit of gunk and grime off of it. Once I got it into the Ute, got it running, driving, it started leaking a bit of coolant out the side of the head gasket too. So I wasn't on a win. So I ripped the head off and cleaned up the block, sent the head away, got it back the next day. They skimmed it. It didn't need much of a skim. They said it was pretty good. They just They skimmed it. They vacuum tested the valves, make sure that was all good. So anyway, I got this motor back together, and that weekend I'd done 900 k's around my local area, back and forth up the road. I got sick of counting the same reflector post, doing the same lap all the time, but it was the only way to put the kilometres on it and sort of semi-prove it before I left for the trip. So fast forward another week or so, I got an auto electrician mate to do a bit of work on it. He put in a two-way, he put it in a dual battery in the back so I could run my Engel fridge. He done a work light over the tray so I could see what I was doing in the dark. He done a really good job. He wired up the air locker that I have in the back of it. He done all a light bar that I had on the front. As you know, G60s don't have great lights, so he done that. The truck was all ready to go. So I headed to Sydney with a day spare. So I headed off to Sydney, and this is the biggest continual run that the G60 had done with this unproven motor that hadn't run any more than 2 or 3 times that I'd had it in the last 20 years. So it was a big risk, but it was either going to prove itself or it wasn't. But anyway, so I made it to Sydney, fine, didn't skip a beat. I had to stop somewhere around Bulahdelah just to nip up the fan belt a bit because it got up to a little bit hotter than normal, but it wasn't overheating or nothing. But I noticed something wasn't quite right, so I pulled up and sure as shit, just nipped up the fan belt and kept sending it to Sydney. So I got into Sydney in the afternoon. It was about 2:30. It was before peak hour, thank God. And everyone's switching the 3 lanes coming across, giving you a thumbs up to it and thinking, oh, this is sick, nice G60 out the window at the traffic lights. And it was awesome. And I thought, I was a bit daunted driving now, go through the city because coming from the bush, we don't have that sort of traffic. And the city folks seem to drive a bit like maniacs. But anyway, we got to Sydney, and the next day, we met up with a couple of other G60 fellas that were coming on the same trip. My mate Dave and Cos and Fernando and Roscoe. So we left Sydney and we headed down towards Goulburn, and that's where we met up with Fernando and his young fella, and I think it was about Pheasant's Nest. Anyway, we kept poking on, and we got to this side of Goulburn about 60-80 k's, and Ross in the G60 had trouble with his 5-speed gearbox. Mark's 5-speed starting to leak oil, so we thought, we'll just top it up, get some gear oil, we'll top her up, and we'll just limp her along see how she goes as far as it goes. So that was all good, well, and the leak sort of stopped leaking. We just didn't fill it up quite up as much just to nurse it. So anyway, we kept poking towards Goulburn, got to Goulburn, filled her up a bit more, kept poking along. We turned off the highway and headed towards Canberra, and Ross disappeared out the revision mirror. We were communicating via the 2-way and stuff like that, but we couldn't hear from him. We tried to ring him, couldn't get hold of him, so this disappeared off the air. Anyway, we finally got hold of him. Turns out his brakes had failed on the rear axle, and his is an early one with a single circuit. So once you lose something in your brake system, you got no brakes. Where the later G60s, and it becomes sort of mandatory after a certain year that vehicles had to have a split system for front and rear. So if you do rip out a brake line or do a wheel cylinder, you still got brakes. But anyway, Ross's was an early model, so that ruled him out for the trip, and he had to unfortunately get the G60 towed back to Sydney on a tilt tray. So anyway, we finally come into Canberra, and that's where we met up with a couple of other fellas, Lawrence and Pete. Had a quick meet and greet there because we hadn't met in person, just via the phone and same through the social platforms. Had a quick meet and greet there, checked out each other's rigs, and we headed down the Monaro, and we ended up stopping at Bombala for fuel before shooting down towards Cairn River. It was starting to get a bit later in the afternoon when we got to Cairn River, and there's no daylight savings at the time. We got to Cairn River about 5, 5:15. We were going to make the decision whether or not we should camp there for the night or not. But with the recommendation of a mate in the Gippsland area, he said poke on a bit further, and there's a good tavern there, good feed. You should be able to camp there, set up for the night. You'd be a winner all around. So we thought our local knowledge will take his advice, but in respect that he hadn't been there for a while, and usually it would be open, but it was closed for renovation. So we poked on as long as we could, and then it got dark, and we had to turn the lights on. And you know, with the G60, you can only see 3 foot in front of you on high beam. So it wasn't favourable driving conditions. So we just chugged along. We eventually got to the town where we were recommended this good spot was going to be, and it was close. It was not a very big town at all. So we headed around to a local caravan park, and a mate went in there, and it was the office was open, but no one was around. So we thought, oh, that was a bit weird. So we headed back out, and across the road there was a bit of a reserve. We weren't from the area. We weren't to know. We'd done 800 k's that day in an old G60, which is a big drive in an old car, especially one of them old cars where you as you know, you've got to drive the car, it doesn't drive you. So anyway, we've got eyeballs hanging out ahead, we're tired, we're jet lagged from driving the old G60s, and such a big day. So anyway, we couldn't get any help at the caravan park, so we headed over to this reserve across the road there, and we started rolling out the awnings. You know, we going to start cooking a bit of feed anyway, and an irate local started coming over and abusing us, and he was not real happy at all. He gave us a mouthful and a few colourful words, and we thought, well, hang on, like, we're not to know, we're not from around here, we're pretty tired by this stage. And anyway, the cars had done a big day, so he goes, go down to the reserve, It's not public camping, but go down there for the night. So we worked out where the reserve was, and we headed down there. Anyway, funnily enough, the local police turned up not long after. I think I have an inkling that a certain someone might have rung them up and made a complaint about us, and that's why the police turned up. Anyway, they were awesome. The police were awesome. We explained that we'd come from Sydney, we'd done 800 k's that day in the old G60s. It's a big drive, and the Sheila and the bloke, they were great. She said, I'm happy for, it's not public camping, but I'm happy for you to stay here tonight. You're fatigued, and we have a duty of care and liability that if we move you on and you have an accident, then that comes back on us. And they were awesome about it. They just said, just keep quiet, just clean up after yourselves, and just quietly leave in the morning. And as we do, we're respectful citizens. We've done what we're told. We don't cause any trouble. So we were so thankful that they allowed us to do that. It was just a bit wrong that that we didn't know, and I still believe that a certain someone had coincidentally had a go at us, and coincidentally the police not long turned up after we were advised to go to this spot. So anyway, on a positive note, the next day we snuck out of there and hit the road. We filled up at the local servo, and we hit the road heading for a little town in the East Gippsland called Bragalong. We met there in the 2018 trip, and we thought it's a no-brainer, we'll do it again. So anyway, we stopped in Barnsdale for a bit, got a few things from the military shop there, a few cheap ponchos and stuff like that as you take out bush, because there was a bit of rain possibly forecasted, and we didn't have none of them. Filled up, done the thing, caught the eye of a few locals anyway, and wanted to talk about the old G60s, which was great. So anyway, we finally rolled into little town of Bragalong in the early afternoon, and met up with a mate there, Clay, and sort of set up. And that afternoon we decided, we'll go for a drive out to a nice little place called the Blue Pools, not far out of town. So we went out there. Water was freezing. I didn't go for a dip. None of the other fellas were game enough to go home for a dip, but it's a beautiful spot out there. That night was burger night at the pub too, so we we ordered some burgers from there, and it's bloody mean feed. So if you're in that area, make sure you get a burger. They're awesome feed. Well, that afternoon, we decided we'd fix up Puggy's tyre. Puggy comes from the New South Wales Victorian border, and he done a tyre coming across the Dargah High Plains Road to meet up with us that day. So a few of us got on the tyre levers and we fixed that tyre up for him and got it ready to go the next day. So anyway, that night we threw the maps out on Clay's table in his workshop and sort of worked out a bit of a plan where we were going to go. And so anyway, the next day we packed up and we headed for Hayfield, where we filled up the G60s for the last time before heading up into the actual high country. Got a few things from the Timberline store there, which is an awesome store. Has a lot of camping stuff, so if you need that last minute thing, it's awesome. I actually picked up a camper chair there because I have a tendency to leave my stuff behind, which I had found out my camper chair was left at Clay's. So anyway, I picked up another chair, so I had something to sit on for the rest of the trip, which was good. So anyway, we left Hayfield and we headed up towards Walhalla and had a quick glimpse around Walhalla before poking up and ending up in Woods Point later in the day. Woods Point was our camp for that night. Quirky little town. Went there on the 2018 trip. A few of the fellas didn't quite make it to Woods Point that trip due to a few issues with the vehicles. But anyway, it was awesome. Got the mandatory photo at the old Woods Point servo there, which is awesome. Assume a few G60s would have filled up there in their heyday. So anyway, we got a little camp just outside of town there. Nice shady area there. We hunted up a bit of firewood, got the campfire going that night, and we just wound down around the campfire, cooked up a feed and had a few beers. Talked a lot of shit and had a great time. Anyway, next day, we're talking to a local that come over to our camp after he saw the old G60s that night, and he was in the local SES. We told him where we were going to go, planning to go that day, and he said it was a bit gnarly and probably a bit off limits for these old girls because he's been out on recoveries and it's an insane track. Anyway, I think the old G60s would have ate it up. So he sent us by this other track. I can't quite remember the name of it. It was more like a dirt highway. It was a bit of a disappointment, really, because we want to put the old girls through their paces. I mean, we're not going out to ride them off. It's not the easiest car to get a straight door, rust-free guard for these days, but we want to go out and at least put them through their paces. So anyway, the track started off with a river crossing, and then it just pretty much continued fast dirt most of the way. And we did go up to a helipad along there about halfway, and that was worth checking out. So we kept poking along that track. Anyway, that afternoon we rolled into Lacola. We filled up. We were planning to meet up with my mate Clay from Braggalong. He does have a G60. He was the leader on our initial 2018 G60 trip. Unfortunately, he'd sold that G60 since, but he does have another one, which we hope we'll see on another trip soon. So anyway, we're planning to meet up with him in a couple of days because he had work and stuff to do. So anyway, we rolled into Cola, we filled up, and we decided we'll start heading up towards Howard Hut. So we pulled up for camp along there, and we hear on the two-way someone that sounded like Clay, and we thought, oh, that sounds like Clay. So we drove to a get a bit ready reception not far from camp, and yeah, Clay was on his way up. He knocked out his jobs he had to get done, and he headed up early. So that was awesome. We rolled into camp, had a great time, and once again it was a great night around the campfire. Anyway, next morning we headed for Dingo Hill Track, I think it is. It does a few switchbacks, winds its way down a bit of a hill. Awesome little drive through there, nothing hard, but not a bad drive. Anyway, it was pretty much at the bottom of Dingo Hill there that the boys in the 79 Blue Ute, Dave and Cos, had lost all wheel pressure. So we thought, oh, what's going on here? Surely it's nothing too serious. But we soon found out that there was an issue there with oil pressure, so they bumped up the idle just to compensate and kept the oil pressure going somewhat. Anyway, we climbed up out of there, and a few good climbs out of there, and had a few of the fellas from Sydney that haven't done a lot of four drive, had them a bit on edge, but no, we ate that up and got through there fine. At the top of that track, we met up with Dave. He's another Victorian fella that was also along for the 2018 trip. He has a young family, so he had a few other commitments. That's why he couldn't come out for the full trip. Anyway, we met up with him, which was awesome that night, and we camped at Howard Hut that night. The boys started cooking a feed and knocked their food out pretty early, and they soon had the sump off the old G60 having to investigate. It turned out that the oil relief inside the pump had worn, and it was relieving the oil pressure. So they tried to shim it up with a washer on the spring to see if that would do, but it didn't do nothing. So anyway, it did help a little bit, and it only lasted about half the next day. So that night was awesome. They got that fixed, everyone had tea, and it was just on dark when all the 200 series people start rolling into the camp with the red and blue and yellow and green flashing lights with the ARB Carnival kit, as Dave calls it. They started rolling in, and it was they stayed away from us, and we mind our business, they mind theirs. They got a few bits of music going, but nothing wrong with that. They're enjoying themselves, we're enjoying ourselves, and the rest of that night was just sat around the campfire and once again having a good yarn and talking, and it was pretty cool. We listened to the wild dogs howling in the distance for nearly all night. It was pretty awesome. Anyway, the next day we was heading into the Warningata Valley, so we headed in via Zika Spur there. Good little track, a few switchbacks. Halfway down we passed a bunch of old Land Rover fanatics coming out in the old Land Rovers. They were pretty rapt to see the old G60s on the tracks as we were to see them. I mean, they're old Landrys and they're bombs compared to the old G60, but it's still cool to see the old bangers out on the tracks. So anyway, we got into the Warningata Valley, and we chose to camp on the river there, and then we went for a bit of a stroll over to the old homestead site and around there, and as you do, have a bit of a look around, and yeah, it was a great night, mate. A few of the fellas done a few little mechanical things on the car. Lawrence had to just nip up his wheel bearing, and Puggy nipped up his drag link on his old D60. So next day, things started getting pretty exciting. We started heading out of the Gata, heading towards the Dargo way, and come across this muddy section where probably 200 metres just of ruts, and it was so Clay went through in his car first. It wasn't a D60. He went through and he's doing a bit of slipping aside, and we thought, oh well, this is going to be interesting. So we started going through one by one. Puggy went through, I went through. Yeah, it's good fun, this spot. And then Ferdy starts coming through, and he's didn't have great tyres, and there was a massive rut. Like, I stopped in there because I didn't want to run into Puggy previously, and I was banging the bank outside the window. It was a mad off camber, but I drove out of it. Anyway, Ferdy's come through, and he's tried to go around the left side of it, but the rear wheels had different plans for him, and the rear wheels got stuck in the rut and spun him sideways, and had the left front wheel up right up in the air, and I think he had to change his undies after that. The photos don't do it justice, but she was on a fair old angle, and he's quite lucky though that the rear of the tray actually sort of held him there, because it could have ended a bit worse if that tray didn't catch into the bank. But that was an awesome bit of track, and it was good. So we kept poking on, and we come across another track and done a few creek crossings or river crossings, and yeah, really enjoying it. Come across this washed out bank, and I'm watching Clay in his V8 Trooper between lockers, and he's finally got her up there, and I thought, oh, find out how D60s are going to do it. So sure as shit, typical D60 style, go wherever you point them. So up we went, we got through there. The only person that had trouble in that section was Fernando again. Hopefully for the next trip he has a bit better tread, but he's the only one that needed help out of that. But it was a pretty gnarly bit of bank. It doesn't show it in the video, all the photos, but it was a good little challenge, that. So anyway, we got through there and roll into camp. It was Mount Murray, I believe, that night. It was a good spot. Top of the world up there it was. So windy but beautiful views. Anyway, it was the wind sort of died down and we got the campfire going. Walked up the hill, watched the sunset go. Anyway, got back to the camp. It was later that night that the wind really kicked in and I not long got into my swag and next minute the boys are laughing. Me awning had folded itself up over the top of me and didn't quite know what had happened. So they laughed, they get laugh out of it. So we got out, we staked it down with a few more pegs, and she was apple. She wasn't going anywhere from then. Next morning though, I woke up and it was like a blizzard. They would have been 60, 70, 80 km/h winds, I reckon. 30s there in the ute with the rooftop tent, and she's nearly up on two wheels, I reckon. She was hammering. So we packed up there pretty quick, as you could imagine, and got out of there. We only had to drive about 50, 100 metres down below that ridge line there, and it was calm as. So we pulled up halfway out of that track and we had a cuppa and we poked on. It was when we got out to the corner of the High Plains Road and the road to Mount Buller there. Puggy decided he was going to head back home to Albury, so he headed on his way, and us boys, we shot in to have a go at drive up the Blue Rag there. It's an awesome drive. We've done 2018. It's not a hard drive. It's an awesome drive, and it's just beautiful scenery. And if you haven't been up there, I suggest you hit it up. So that's Blue Rag range track. So anyway, we done that. Got to the top, and then we started. We'll try and hit the Dogo pub for a counter lunch. So we got out of there and we were making a bit of ground across the High Plains Road there, and then got held up at a couple of bits of road work. So looking at the watch, thinking, oh well, we're not going to make this lunch, and we only missed out by about 10 minutes. So we had a beer and a few drinks and wound down. And that night we camped behind the Dogo pub. It was a good little spot there, out in the paddock with the sheep on the river there. So we just set up camp there for the night, and then we'd ventured around back to the pub that night for dinner. It was a good feed there. The next day, Pete and Ferdy were going to head back to Canberra and Sydney. So we parted ways with them boys, and Lawrence. We parted ways with them after what had been a great trip, and me and Dave and Cos, we decided we're going to hit up the Crooked River track, which is a great track. It does about 20 crossings within 5-6 k's. I think it's an awesome track. So another one we also checked out in 2018. So we hit that up and we started going through, and the river was quite up compared to what it was in 2018. In 2018, I don't think it had even hit your bottom of your hubs. This trip here, it was awesome. We had it coming over the headlights. You had it flowing through every door seal and them G60 as possible. Awesome. And they didn't miss a beat. So we done the Crooked River track, and G60 didn't miss a beat, didn't need to recover, and a bit more of a challenge in some of the entrances and stuff out of the creek. But anyway, got up to the top of Bulltown Spur there, and I noticed that my fuel tank had a pinhole start coming through it. So we bodged it up, and firstly I didn't know what we were going to do. We tried to use the needed quick steel, and that didn't work. It wouldn't bind, wouldn't do anything. So Cosmo came up with an old tip. He said, oh, you got a cake of soap there, Mick? So I said, yeah, I do. So I got a cake of soap out and gave a rub over the fuel, and I didn't realise that the fuel reacts with the soap, and that stopped the leak. So I thought, well, we'll try and nip it back to Clay's house and see if I can do something a bit more substantial to repair it by then. So anyway, done another probably 60 k's to Clay's or whatever it was. I don't know off the top of my head. Got there, put up on the hoist, and sure as shit, she's still not leaking. It's held up quite well. So I fixed up my handbrake that I'd ripped off earlier on the track into Mount Murray the day before, so I fixed up that for the trip home. Made sure, went over everything, went over the U-bolts, gave her all the grease, left the fuel tank as it was holding up quite good, so why change it? So anyway, that tank held up all the way back to Sydney, and then all the way back to home, and I eventually got a new tank made for that, because ute tanks are hard to get for the G60s, and that tank had caught me out earlier on in the piece when I first got the G60 on the road in 2019 or 2020, whatever it was. It was rusting from the inside out, and it dragged a lot of rust up through the lines, and it wasn't a clear fuel filter. And I was coming home one day, and she's backfiring and sputtering out the car. And I thought, oh, what's going on here? She's out of fuel. Anyway, sure as shit, the filter was clogged, couldn't suck up things. So I mucked around and got a bit more time out of that tank, a couple of years out of that tank, and just that trip was the end of it. So I got a tank made up now. It's not so deep, but it's a little bit wider. So it's 61 half dozen in the other capacity wise. But all good and well. It was a great trip with a great bunch of blokes, and that's the sort of stuff I live for. And I'm glad that the fellas that couldn't make the initial trip in 2018 could make this one, and I'm glad that they had a great time, and I'm looking forward to doing a few more trips with them at other times. So yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. There will be some video content at the end, as well as you see in the photos throughout the talking. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. Anyway, guys, catch you later. Cheers.
Take your thumbs out of the steering wheel, mate. You took a brave man's line there, mate. It does.
Holy shit. He's got a bit stuck here.
Just leave it like that, mate, just in case you need it again.
Just stay in the rut, Lawrence.
Just turn the wheel a little bit and get in the rut, eh?
When you're going, just stay in this rut.
Yeah, I will.
30, maybe second.
Second?
Just a second.
First sounded really like you're really labouring.
If you can't get second, third.
Oh yeah.
Third then.
Keep on, keep on. Yep.
Easy. You're right into it.
Fucking.
You fly, dude. Can't do shit.
Just driving around checking
Wider
his...
tyres would have made it better.
Nah. It's a line 30.
He's learned.
Wheeling, chasing his cows around the wet paddocks probably.
Gasoline peaks last one.
Yeah. Oh, when we were at Clay's.
Oh, he just went through. Is that a ute as well?
Yeah. Same as mine and yours and the other boys. They're all the same, the utes, yeah. Nice drive, Pete.
Yeah. It's really got his thing. Very shot, so old fellas just get
No revs. No revs.
Yeah, 5-speed, you know.
Oh, there he goes. Oh, no.
I think it's not steep there, is it?
No. That's what I did. That's what I started to do, to slide across like that.
He's probably insane. You can hear the old fan, eh, Clay? Fucking up, Pete.
That's how you do it, Pete.
lucky we don't venture it over.
The headlights got eye now.
Suit yourself, but
Oh, yes. Fuck it. Send. Apa? Apa, paga? You got the locker though. Into it. Keep it. That'll do. Whoa.
just stick it in first, mate. Go up as far as you can.
On the head from that.
Drive it.
What do you reckon? Second gear and try and get a bit further, Clay, or what? Nah, we'll just winch her. We'll just winch her, eh? Into her! Woo! Here she comes. Into her!
Is he in the right? No. Just wait a sec, Dave. He's just halfway up at the moment. Must be. It's something that just doesn't agree with it, eh?
Yeah. Coming in too hot, eh? Woo! Sender! Comes Dave C.
Maybe just get him. Oh, nah, to be right.
Fucking stay there, Pete.
Fuck, I can't tell him either. I don't know if you actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Fucking showing them how it's done, Pete. Into a buggy.
Doing it easy, isn't it?
Yeah. You see more. It's old Ferdy coming down the range. There's Pete. You! Give it to her!
He's in second gear, eh?
Yeah. Here comes Pete. Into it, Pete. Yeah. Nice drive, Pete. Into her. I got the wheel off the ground, yeah. Nice drive, mate. Homes that are missing out, you should have come. I'm going to cut now, eh?
What are they missing out on, Mick?
What aren't they missing out on?
How good is it?
It is the fucking best. It was worth it, boys.
Oh,
You can
well.
always turn around, never too late. But by the time this hits the press, that's a big boy.
You coming off now? Nice and slow. Nice and slow. Your back wheel's going to come off now. Just go easy. Nice and easy. Yeah, now your front's going to come down.